All right, go ahead and roll for perception.
I got a 13.
Hey, that's pretty good. With that, you can tell there's some fantasy situations going on. You hear some adult language, and with that, you can tell this podcast probably isn't for kids. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons, from pompous pixies to poking piercers. And today we're talking about the Underdark.
Prepare yourselves. I cast Fireball. The Dungeoncast.
All right, Brian, let's talk about the Underdark.
Deep underground.
Yes, it is. And it's also going to be the first Atlas Exteris episode that doesn't actually get into a different plane of existence exactly. Although there is some planar weirdness going on about the Underdark.
Down there.
Definitely.
Well, the Beholder lives in the Underdark, right?
One of the many horrific things that lives in the Underdark.
So many
yes.
horrible things that we've
Yes.
touched on that just live down there.
Yeah,
Alright. There's only like one horrible thing that one not horrible thing we've talked about that does live down there. I think it's deep gnomes, right?
Yes, that's one of there are more than deep gnomes that are not terrible that live there.
Oh, okay.
But the Underdark is known to be the stomping grounds of some of the most evil shit out there.
The
without
most
a doubt.
evil shit under there.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. Illithids, mind flayers live down there. Beholders, the Drow Empire is down there. Darrow or murderous, like dwarf Drow creatures that live down there. Duergar live down there. There's all kinds of nasty stuff down there.
So we've talked a little bit about who, and I'm sure we'll get into some more who later, but where? Let's talk about some where.
Yes. Okay. So, well, first we will talk about where, but first let's establish what the Underdark is.
Okay.
The Underdark is a sprawling, continent-spanning network of caverns, passages, wide abysses, and deep crevasses.
So that's where sinkholes come from.
I guess so. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, whenever someone gets sucked down into a sinkhole, they're just getting taken to the Underdark.
Oh, they've gone to the Underdark. They're drowned now.
And despite the fact that it's so, and it is very deep underground, like you said, we want to talk about where. The Underdark is divided into 3 sections, and it's the Upper Dark, the Middle Dark, and the Lower Dark. Sometimes it's just shortened to the Shallows and the Deeps. But
okay.
The Upper Dark starts around 3 miles below the surface.
So anything above 3 miles is just considered
Underground.
Just regular old underground.
Yes.
Just some tunnels. Just some plain ass tunnels.
Now, I've seen where there's no defining marker where the Underdark begins or ends, but I've also seen where there's almost like a magical barrier for when the Underdark begins, because the Underdark is kind of simultaneously treated as not its own a plane of existence and its own plane of existence at the same time.
Okay.
And I've seen it portrayed in both ways, but the reason that it is portrayed the way it is because the deeper you go, the more reality, I guess, begins to fray on that. You're kind of approaching the edge of the plane of existence, I suppose.
Shit.
Like, this isn't official, but basically what happens is the reason that there's such a deep far realm and abyssal kind of influence is because the wall between the planes is thin here. And so for some reason, I guess you're kind of reaching the edge of reality.
Okay, so
The deeper you go.
we might go a little bit off topic here, but
it's a weird subject, so let's talk about it.
I make a campaign.
Yes.
The world is round?
I would maybe. It could be.
Okay, I make a classic D&D campaign. The world is round?
Probably not.
Okay, yeah.
Probably
okay.
not.
I think of everything in D&D as the way D&D describes it, as like discs almost.
Right.
Like, or rings with like a solid middle.
Yeah.
So like the material plane of existence would be like this solid middle. And then so if you would burrow into it, there'd be like a crust layer, and then you would go into what would be the Underdark probably.
Right. Maybe.
And then eventually if you kept going, it would just like you would enter a new plane of existence because it's like a pizza almost.
Right. And it definitely can be portrayed like that. And often it is.
Okay.
That's not how I usually run this. Okay. I don't like the Underdark very much. Number one, it's a scary as fuck place, but number two, I don't know. I just don't like Underground
I found
very much.
as a role player, like when I'm role playing, when I experience things my character doesn't like, I also don't like them.
Yeah, I
kinda
think that's I think that is probably a big part of it. But and vice versa. Like being trapped underground gives me claustrophobia. So like, why would I want to go there or run it?
Why would
run
I
a
want
campaign
to,
there?
Yeah, why would I want to think in detail about
Yeah.
what this place is when I have this like issue with it? Yeah, I get that. I get that.
But like, okay, so the Underdark also has a lot of inconsistencies. It's almost like this melting pot of like, let's just put a bunch of horrible shit here, or if we don't know where to put something, we'll put it in the Underdark. That's kind of what it feels like to me. So it doesn't have as a cohesive
it's not
lore.
as themed,
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it has a lot of conflicting lore. Like what made the Underdark? There's some lore that say like the primordials when they crafted everything made it. Others say that there was a god named Turog who got trapped down here for like a myriad of like esoteric reasons.
And they spun him around in the chair a lot, blindfolded him, and then he just tried to dig his way out.
Sure. Well, he did try and dig his way out, and that is part of his lore. And but he can't escape, and so he eternally creates more and more Underdark.
I don't
and he's
understand
going
directions.
deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, no, it said he's trapped down there. He can't break the ceiling.
Oh,
he can't exit. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So now he resides deep in the deep.
What's it? What's
Turog.
Turog.
Yeah.
MTV Cribs.
The one who crawls
Turog.
beneath.
The one who crawls beneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then there's other lore where it's like the Underdark is just been crafted over millennia by like things like beholders. We talked about beholders in the disintegration rays, and purple worms also burrow, and there's all kinds of great burrowing creatures that could have like scoured out all this.
Yeah, I was
all
gonna
these
say purple
tunnels and
worm would have
whatnot.
been one of my running candidates to like figure out who made the Underdark.
Yeah, and then there's also just the fact that like there are huge sections of the Underdark made out of what's called living stone, which just molds and changes over centuries. So like, although that won't really affect like humans trying to map the Underdark because their lifespans are so short, like dark elves live for at least a millennia, and paths that they knew in their 2nd century are no longer the same in their 4th century. So like that's another thing. Getting lost in the Underdark is a serious issue. So maybe the living stone just kind of over.
So it is kind of planar in that way. Like if you were in the plane of fire, like you're going to be born like fire elemental stuff is going to like influence you. Maybe like if you're like I'm kind of thinking about Genasi. Like they have that planar influence going on. So if you get lost in the Underdark, that plane might like influence you to become Underdarky, for lack of a better term.
I guess over time, I think the Dark Elves were always Dark Elves before they got banished there.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have the sunlight sensitivity and stuff until later on, so like I guess that did influence them.
That seems more of like a biological thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't really have that effect, but it does have some effects. Okay, so the Underdark permeates with this magical radiation called it's Fair's Rest or something like that. It's a magical radiation. Cool. And I've seen it portrayed in two ways. One is it's just this invisible radiation that permeates the Underdark. The other is it's like a mist that kind of fills the Underdark.
Okay.
Either way, it has a couple of very specific effects. Number one, it is a major food source for a lot of the plant and fungi life down here. There's no sunlight down here.
Okay.
So the
they're like
energy has to
absorbing
come
this
from
mist.
Yeah, they've learned to feed off the mist or the radiation, whichever you're using. Second effect is it has a crazy wild effect on magic, much like sorcerer's wild magic chart might.
Ooh, okay.
And third, and I think this might be the most important, is that it completely nullifies any type of scrying or teleportation spells.
Oh, shit.
You cannot teleport into the Underdark or out of the Underdark.
That's crazy in like late game campaigns because I see a lot of parties like start to rely on scrying.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. And
Way to
the
fuck 'em
Underdark,
up.
yeah, way to fuck them up.
So if you're doing magic down there, are you rolling like off of a random table, kind of like that?
Yeah, if you're using the radiation in that way, I would. For me, like I like the mist way of going about it. I just think it's cool. So like I would only have them roll like the wild magic if they're like in some thick mists.
Okay. Cool.
But that's just me. I think officially you're supposed to run that basically all the time.
Geyser. I like when geysers go off.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Super random.
So this continent-spanning network of caves and caverns, despite it being underground and there being no sunlight and it being mostly stone, is actually home to a lot of ecosystems, some major cities, and just more than a few civilizations that have risen and fallen.
Okay.
There are all kinds of deadly fungi and plants that grow down here. Food is scarce, and oftentimes players will be forced with the decision of trying to eat some of these plants, and
Suck
some
down
of them
some
will
mist.
really hurt you.
Oh.
They'll really fuck you up. You can't really suck on the mist. No, you can't.
You gotta live long enough like the plants.
Yeah, you gotta be a fun guy.
Cool.
But like I said, the civilizations, like we're talking about Duergar, which are like they're like evil dark dwarves kind of.
Okay.
And they've been portrayed in a couple ways. I don't really want to get into them.
The underdwarves.
Yeah, the underdwarves, if you will. There are the deep gnomes that do have some cities and whatnot, and like I'm gonna be honest, like I don't understand how deep gnomes get around.
Yeah,
around here. It is a
they're-
scary fucking place.
They must just kind of hold up in like a section.
They got
that's-
cities like
Yeah.
Blingden Stone or whatever. That's like their major city in the Forgotten Realms.
Maybe they
I don't
know what
much about it.
dynamite is. Aren't they really crafty?
They're really crafty.
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe they're setting traps.
I'm sure they got defenses, but the Drow are ruthless, and the Drow are powerful, dude.
Yeah.
It is said that the Drow, if they were to ever get their shit together, like they would be a force to fucking reckon with in the surface world.
So they're kind of just in disarray down there. Maybe like
Yes and no. Let's talk a little bit about the Drow, because the Drow will get their own episode because there's just such a crazy monster race. But they're definitely the dominant force of the Underdark.
Okay.
They
they're
have
top dog.
They're definitely not like they're
Well,
not.
in
It's
ter-
not undisputed. Like they have problems. They're constantly in wars with other races
Yeah, I would
and
imagine
whatnot.
there's like other powerful shit.
They are exceptionally powerful.
They have numbers on their side, right?
Yes, to a certain degree.
Okay.
I think each of their big cities probably has anywhere from 20 to 30,000 Drow rolling around in it.
Pretty good.
But the thing about the Drow is they're ruled by a goddess named Lolth, whose basic tenets are it's all about the survival of the fittest kind of deal.
Sure.
And that she constantly wants them backstabbing each other. So only the best, only the most cunning, only the strongest, only the most arcane.
Kind of filtering
only
out.
the best. Like
Yeah.
they're pretty big on the whole eugenics thing.
Okay.
Yeah, only the best survive, and because of that, like they're scary. Like theoretically, a single Drow warrior could probably take on like 4 Elven warriors on his own. Yeah, they don't fuck around, but because they're constantly in this Game of Thrones and vying for power, like they can never get their shit together enough to actually do anything.
Yeah, no one's cooperating.
Yeah,
We're all
no one's
vying for
cooperating.
power.
Everyone's vying for power. On top of that, they got some weird, like they're a matriarchal society to the extreme.
Oh, cool.
Like men are basically slaves. Even like the most highborn men, you're nothing.
I'm down.
Yeah, and like they have a really miserable like existence where it's like even if you're like a prominent warrior, if 2 like noble women take an interest in you, and you as a man, you can never initiate a relationship, that you'll just be killed if you try. You have to entertain both of these women, and if one of them loses interest, here's what got me. I was reading this.
Don't run out of steam.
No, if one of them loses interest in the rivalry with the other woman, the way they announce that the rivalry is over is they cut off the head of the male and deliver the body to the rival, just to say like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
Yeah. So no,
I know you're not, but I am.
Men in this society, they have a fucked up experience.
Oh, shit, okay.
But we'll talk about Drow later. But they definitely are the dominant force.
Cool.
The most organized. They're the only ones with like a legit military. And they have the most cities. They're mostly going to be in your Middle Dark, although the most famous Drow city, Menzo Berenzin, is technically in the Upper Dark. And
Okay.
it's actually probably the most flourished of all the Drow cities because of its proximity to the surface has allowed for heavy slave trade and other trade as well, but also raiding of the surface.
Okay.
And because of its removal of from the rest of the cities in the Middle Dark, it doesn't have to deal with other cities fucking with their shit.
Okay.
So they've actually flourished. And okay, we're moving on. So ecosystems, there's like huge like chasms full of just giant webs, just with spider swarms, like giant
man.
spider swarms. Like there's
The Drider?
yeah, well, Driders are part of a Drow society. We'll talk about the Drider
really?
with Drow. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
There's 2 types of Drider. Some are turned into a Drider as punishment. Others are turned into a Drider as a reward for being so pious to Lolth.
Oh, okay.
Because Lolth has 3 forms. She has the form where she looks like a Drow. She has the form where she looks like a giant demonic spider, and she has the form of her Drider form. Those
Which
are her
is kind
3.
of like the centaur of spiders.
Kinda, yeah. It's a lol thing.
Okay, cool.
So hashtag lol thing.
Do you know more about being punished into being like? What's the difference between being rewarded to become a Drider?
Let's not talk about Drow. They're gonna get their episode. We got a lot to talk about when it comes to the
Drow
Underdark.
territory. Yeah, okay.
All right, moving on from the Drow. So there's other ecosystems like huge sprawling like fungi, forest and mushroom forests. There's a race of creatures that live down here that are kind of neutral. They're called myconids, and they're basically like mushroom fungus humans.
Called myconids?
Yeah.
It's oddly close to Mike and Ike. Sorry.
What? Oh, like Mike and
candy?
Ike's the candy.
I don't know what
They're
like,
myconids.
I pictured
or
a lot of different things.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Anyways, yeah, they're like fungus people, and they're pretty neutral. I actually don't know too much about them as of right now, but they kind of belong. The way one thing I do know is like they have like a society that is kind of all one, if you will. Like they're all part of a greater organism that is the fungus, if you will.
Part of the ship.
Yeah, they're all, yeah. There we go. Yeah, part of the ship, part of the crew. That's them.
Okay. They're like interconnected in some way.
Definitely. And so they exist down there, and they're people that you might find some sort of.
It's not like a hive mind thing, is it?
It can be.
Okay.
I don't think it necessarily is. I mean, I think they are individuals.
Okay, cool.
I think they are individuals.
Kind of like a coral reef.
Yeah, I think they're all
Polyps.
born of like this greater fungus thing.
Yeah, like
sprawls the Underdark.
I got you.
There are illithids in. Okay, so we in the Upper Dark, you're gonna have like some Duergar. You're gonna have some Drow. You're gonna have some dwarves. Dwarves do live down here.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, they vie for territory down here. You're gonna have maybe goblins, trolls, some regular monsters. But none of the real scary stuff quite yet. When you get to the Middle Dark, you start having like illithids are down here and deeper. Illithids are like, have we talked about them at all?
I don't remember. I don't think so because I've got like some vague idea of what that is.
Illithids have a lot of different like origins.
Okay,
we're not really talking about any of those, but basically they are these squid parasites. That what they do is when they need a body, first and foremost, they kill the human, they devour the brain, and then they take the place of the brain and head.
Right.
And they actually the humanoid then transforms and becomes like this humanoid with like a squid head and much like
Davy Jones.
Like Davy Jones. There we go. Just like Davy Jones actually. Without
Davy
like
Jones.
the lobster claw and all that shit. Just the squid head.
Just the squid head.
And they are hyper intelligent.
They do the psychic stuff, right?
They are incredibly psionic. They're all about enthralling and devouring brains.
There it is.
And they serve an elder brain, which we'll get into that another time. But
I think we have talked about this on the podcast, actually.
Have we?
Yeah,
okay.
We've definitely talked about it outside the podcast.
Well, Mind Flayers / Illithids will get their own episode, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But they've had like huge civilizations rise and fall, and the Drow and them don't get along. Nothing down here gets along, but they're always vying for territory as well. They live down here with
no
their
secrets,
with their
no
thralls.
friends, only psychics.
Yeah, only psychics. Yeah, and we've talked about beholders. We've talked about them living down here, and so yeah, they exist down here in all the various ways that we discussed in our beholders episode.
Making layers and shit.
Yeah, food and water is a serious problem down here. Despite the fact that there are actual oceans down here.
Okay.
There are huge caverns that expand, that are the size of seas that have saltwater seas in them.
Cool.
With horrid monstrosities that live underneath the surface. Yeah.
I'm sure.
But yeah,
The
food and
ocean
water
is scary enough as it is. Now we
Right.
got Underdark oceans.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was saying though, food and water is a constant issue down here. If you're running a campaign long term down here, you need to treat the Underdark very much like you would like any other tough terrain, like high mountains or desert, where like food and water are hard to get.
Survival style.
Yeah, survival style. There we go. Usually I don't keep track of that kind of stuff in my campaign, but if I'm in the Underdark, you should, because it's a problem.
How much gnome jerky you got left?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know, man. Not a lot.
The Underdark is a deadly place inherently, like to the point of like no food and water, horrible things live down here. Like there's traps and weird environments around every corner, and sometimes the air itself is fucking deadly.
It's full of nasty magic mist and shit.
Well, yeah, but like there are going to be whole sections that have been cut off from like the surface for so long that the air is stale and poisonous.
Ooh.
Like, have you ever heard of stale air in real life?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
That shit will kill archaeologists if they go into like a pyramid tomb or something that's been sealed too long, and they breathe the stale. It'll fucking kill them.
Nice.
And
Super
same
good.
down here.
Is that like bacteria growing in the air?
Yeah, I don't know the details, but There's poisonous and deep gas fumes that come spouting out of the ground down here.
My favorite.
Volcanic fumes, all kinds of stuff. Speaking of which, there's going to be like whole volcanic environs down
like
here.
lava shit. So not necessarily dark in those places if it's volcanic.
I guess not. And there are some sources of light scattered throughout the Underdark.
That's a section called the Underdim.
Yeah, the Underdim. There you go. There's going to be sections where like phosphorescent fungi and whatnot.
Okay.
So there's that. Funnily enough, despite like all the deadly shit down here, the temperature is moderate year round all the time. It's a nice 72 degrees.
I would equate that to absolutely lovely on the skin.
Yeah, it feels great.
I would equate that to like a planet core, but as we talked about, it's actually just a pizza. So there is no
D&D. It's just a pizza.
There's pizza downstairs. You want to take a short rest and have some?
Oh fuck yes, I do.
Okay.
Sorry guys, short rest time. Hell yeah, I do.
Hey everybody, welcome to the part of the show where we take a quick break and we talk about something else. It's different from what we were talking about. It's usually about us and you. Let's talk about you. Thanks. Thank you for coming here and listening to the show. Really appreciate it, whether on YouTube or SoundCloud or Podcast Addict or iTunes, whatever it is, however you found us. Thank you very much. Will, I think we wanted to talk about a couple things today.
Yeah. I think first off, let's talk about, we wanted to shout out to the podcast Join the Party, who had us on a few weeks back to have an interview with us, and it was a lot of fun. We had a good time, and that episode is actually airing on the 27th. So if you're interested in listening in on an interview with us truly from the Dungeoncast,
Will and Brian,
that episode will have aired on the 27th. So by the time this episode airs, that was last Tuesday. So go check it out, and then if you like that, you should go ahead and check out the entire podcast Join the Party. They're an actual play live cast, and it's a really high quality podcast with really, really enjoyable both characters and players playing those characters.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Eric does a great job of DMing, and it's a load of fun. So check it out.
Yeah, they're called Join the Party, and then I think the episode we're gonna be on airs on their off week of the game, which they're
calling their Punch Bowl.
Yeah, the Punch Bowl, and he said it was like, join the party, and like after the party we talk about, like, we go have a conversation with somebody at the Punch Bowl. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that was cool. It's a cool theme they got going on.
Go check it out. I'm pretty sure they're on everything. All the
podcasts.
You
can find them on iTunes. You can find them on pretty much anywhere you download podcasts.
On Podcast Addict.
You can follow them on Twitter at Join the Party Pod. But yeah, check them out.
Cool. I think the other thing we want to talk about is our ongoing podcast for not Dungeoncast minis. I guess if you get one from us, it's a Dungeoncast
mini.
Ongoing
contest.
It's a Hero Forge mini.
Yes, we're giving away 3, and when this episode airs, I think it'll be July 3rd. So guess what? Tomorrow we are announcing 3 winners for this contest.
Happy 4th of July, also.
Yeah, that too. So if you have not done what you need to do to join this contest and win those minis, you got a day.
Well,
do it now.
What do we need to do to win the contest?
All you got to do to join this contest is to tweet a link to a show, whether that's an episode, a playlist, whether it's SoundCloud or iTunes.
Not just any show.
Or our show. The show. The only show that matters right now.
The Dungeoncast.
The Dungeoncast. And when you tweet the link to the show, you have to add the hashtag Dungeoncast so I can then see it and add it to the list. And if you do this, you will be added to the list of people, and I will pull 3 names from that list tomorrow. Cool.
And I appreciate everybody using hashtag Fey Bullshit. That was nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
But don't do it for this one. Use hashtag Dungeoncast. That's what we use to, if you want to tweet about the show, hashtag Dungeoncast is a great way for us to see it. And putting out a link means you're entered in the contest. So please do. We want to spread the word about the show. Word of mouth is great. And that would be awesome for you guys to tell everybody on your Twitter feeds about us. So you can find us on Twitter at the Dungeoncast if you want to get in on that, or just see what Will's doing on the Twitter, because he's running a pretty good thing there. You can also find us on soundcloud.com/the Dungeoncast. We're on YouTube. Just search Dungeoncast. Any of the podcast applications will bring us up. Please, if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that. And if you are on iTunes, please leave us a rating and a review. That would be amazing. But other than that, just thanks again. Just thank you.
Yeah, the audience has been growing for this show. This show has been growing at a very fast rate, and it's a little overwhelming, and I can't thank you guys enough. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the show, let's get back to it.
Let's get back to the show. I think the last thing I was talking about was that despite all the horrid shit, the temperature seems to be very nice.
Yeah, it is mild indeed.
Strangely enough, the water temperature in this place is incredibly close to freezing at all times.
Is that magic related?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that that's the case.
It just is, okay.
So yeah, this place is scary. I would say this place is scarier than the Shadowfell or the Fae, as far as I'm concerned.
I was going to ask how similar to the Shadowfell this is. It doesn't sound
it's
too similar.
It's not, but
I mean, they're dark and drab.
Yes, that's true.
But the beholder only lives in one of them.
True. So as I was saying about like the whole reality kind of growing thin here.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's very easy to cross into both the Fey Dark and the Shadow Dark from here, which are the equivalents in both the Shadowfell and the Fey realm, Feywild.
Okay.
So,
new to me.
differences: the Feywild, the Fey Dark is going to be a lot more phosphorescent, a lot less actually dark,
I see.
It will be dim, but there's going to be glowing rock and glowing crystals and glowing fungi. Goblins live down here, but the more Fey kind of goblins. There's going to be trolls and Fomorians is probably going to be your big thing. Fomorians are like giants,
super ugly,
really ugly giants.
I think last episode we started by saying fugly Fomorians.
Yeah, fugly Fomorians. Yeah, absolutely. A Fomorian is like if you took a hill giant and then subjected him to a mad amount of radiation and became a mutant hill giant. That's a Fomorian. They're like purple, grotesque looking giants, and they're really nasty and mean. And they kind of run the shit down there in the Fey Dark. The Shadow Dark is going to be a lot like the regular Underdark, just shadowier and scrimmer. Shadow Kai live there.
Shadowier.
Yeah. It just sucks that much more. I guess you could say.
There's not a lot of light, but there's sure a lot of shadows here.
yeah, pretty much. Let's see here. One of the things the Underdark kind of does have in common with the Shadowfell is the Shadowfell has that kind of like that Shadowfell despair.
Yes.
The
What's
Underdark,
that, like 7 days?
Yeah, every day or so you have to make a saving throw.
Oh, I was thinking about the story you told me about the guy they subjected to basically a death sentence.
Yeah, he only lasted for 7 days. Yeah.
And he didn't even watch The Ring.
No, he didn't. But in the Underdark, there is a chance, especially the deeper you go, that the Underdark will begin to drive you mad.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is close proximity to the Far Realm.
Okay.
There are sections of the Underdark that are so deep that like nothing goes there.
Oh.
Because there's such horrid other shit down there. I think you have the distinct possibility of falling into the Far Realm the deeper you go down there. There's a lot of there's legends that like Torog is down there, the god that can't escape. Like,
yeah,
he's somewhere down there. Speaking of gods, there's like more than a few that are constantly vying for control of this horrible place.
Of the deep Underdark?
Yeah, there's Torog, and then Lolth considers it hers because of the Drow, and there's a dark elf. There's a Drow god named Gonadar, who used to be part of the pantheon with Lolth, but was betrayed by her.
Okay.
And like he is a god of the Drow, but he's also a god of like oozes and whatnot. And he kind of feels like this is his domain because there's a lot of like oozes and shit down here. They permeate this place. Black puddings and ochre jellies and all that. They're all down here.
Oozes are nuts.
Yeah. I can't wait for the ooze episode. That'll be fun. There are creatures down here called the Kuatoa, which I don't like them. They're gross and scary.
What are they?
They're psychotic, schizophrenic fish people. And I mean, by fish people, they're like these short, squat humanoids with a giant like fish head.
So like a humanoid body, but like a
short, squat body with a big old fish head.
So it's like a football shape, kind of like how a fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what they look like.
So I'm picturing like a tail on the back of the head. That would, the head
there's like a fin.
Okay, yeah. So like the head is, if you cut off the head, it would look like a goldfish, but there's a body underneath.
Well, not like a goldfish, more like, I don't know, like a sardine.
A beta.
Sure. Anyways, they're really nasty creatures that. Okay, so get this. Like their shtick is that they worship these gods that don't exist, but they believe in them so fucking fervently that sometimes they come about and start to exist.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're like these weird cultist looking things. And sometimes they get tricked into worshiping like a demon god to help power up the demon god
cool.
or demon prince. If
Super
you will.
good.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the demon princes vie for power fucking everywhere. And the Underdark is a place that sometimes they can touch. So you're flying cultists and shit down here. I think the entire Out of the Abyss module has a thing where like the demon princes are here. They're fucking shit up.
Hey, we're here.
Yeah, and then they're warring each other for dominance of the Underdark. It's
So they have like their legions of mortals that they're employing more or less.
I think in Out of the Abyss, no, they're literally just here. They don't need no fucking legion.
I don't need no mortals.
Yeah, the armies would fall beneath the rage of Demogorgon. Like nothing would be able to harm him.
Yeah, homeboy on the Demogorgon's back, everybody.
Yeah. We talk about him a lot, despite me not liking him. He's like one of my least favorite demon princes, but he comes up a lot.
His name just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah,
though.
it does. And I think he's probably the most popular of the demon princes, him and Orcus.
Shout out to Demogorgon.
Yeah, I guess so. So we've talked a lot about horrible things that live here. There are some not so horrible things, and we talked about them a little bit. There's the myconids, there's the dwarves, there are some deep gnomes. There are creatures called flumps.
Oh,
And they are
they fly?
They float about, yes, and they are like the only nice thing that ever come out of the far realm.
It's kind of bad when like we use the alliterations at the beginning of the
And
episode.
you don't know what they are.
I just like I go through the monster manual like this is an F word, flying flumps.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
they
well,
do
do
fly.
they fly? They do fly.
Yeah,
oh,
they
cool.
do fly. They mostly float.
They just float.
And they're really friendly, benign, tentacle monsters, but they're really adorable actually. And they got
Okay.
like they're like floating jellyfishes. They're hyper intelligent though, and they have psionic abilities.
Cool.
But they are hated by all the other far realm creatures, and they're usually constantly fleeing for their lives.
Okay.
They do have some defenses and stuff. We'll do a flumps episode, or they probably can't carry their own episode, but we'll put them with
Being
something else
psychic
as well.
seems to give you some like footing in the Underdark.
Well, it's just that like the far realm permeates here, and almost everything from the far realm is highly psionic. So it's just psionics are a thing here.
Cool.
Quagoths are a thing.
We've used that in the alliterations too.
Yes, we have. They are these weird bear-like humanoid creatures that are generally neutral. They're very primal, almost animal-like, but they are intelligent and they can speak.
Okay.
And they kind of trail. They're very nomadic. They don't really have like a society or a city, but they wander about here. There are aboliths who we haven't talked too much about aboliths, but they're from the far realm, and they are like giant, hyper intelligent fish monsters that enthrall psionically hundreds of slaves if they can.
Oh,
and
shit.
they have memories that date back to the beginning of all creation.
Did they earn those memories? Or are they stolen memories?
I think they're just incredibly long lived. They're some of the
Okay.
oldest creatures in the existence
Holy
of
fuck.
all D&D. We'll do an aboliths episode.
It was around when God was a boy.
Yes. So we've talked about how horrible this place is, and I've described it as best I can. Do you have any other questions about the Underdark? Anything I'm not covering? That any questions that come to your mind?
How dark is it?
It's incredibly dark. A lot of times, completely no light. It's why dark elves have both the sunlight sensitivity and the superior dark vision.
I don't know how this. If I pull out my torch and light it, like, am I going to attract enemies?
Probably.
Then they're
You'll
going to
see
want to
that
like.
shit.
They
But,
want.
I mean-
they want it dark.
I don't think they care either way.
Yeah, nothing's really trying to light it up, as far as I know. Like
Yeah.
deep gnomes, kind of maybe they have like dim lighting going on. I don't know. Everything's got dark vision.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they'd still have dim lighting going on in the deep gnomes at least.
Okay.
The thing is, like, it's such a sprawling, wide place. Like, if you light your torch, it's not necessarily certain that something will see it immediately. But if you start wandering about with the torch for like hours, yeah, you're going to attract some attention without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so these like cultists, they're coming down from the material plane and the surface, and they're trying to get to the like great old ones and shit. The
I could see that being a thing because
Okay.
since like this place has such proximity to the far realm, like if you're looking for that kind of connection, like yeah, if you're willing to brave the depths, I mean, there are worse places you can go to try and like actually make that connection.
So now my questions are like, geographically based, like compared to what is above. Now this tunnel, this Underdark system, and it does seem like a system that's down here.
It can be, but there are whole sections of the Underdark that don't contact each other.
Okay.
Like for instance, like you would have a whole section up here that like the only way to get to it is there's like a few surface entrances, but in no way is it connected to anywhere else in the Underdark. It's like this little Underdark section that's cut off from the rest of everything.
So what's going to... Now, there are lots of fantastic things in D&D.
Yes.
And I don't think it's so far removed to have something in the ocean try to burrow its way to the Underdark. And that seems bad because the ocean would drain into the Underdark, right?
Yeah, but again, remember, like a lot of this isn't interconnected.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
A lot of it
You're
isn't,
right.
yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't necessarily be... Okay, so
and the ocean really is fucking huge.
Yeah,
huge,
yeah. So I was
like,
thinking,
and I would even say, in all honesty, unless your Underdark is specifically like never ends, like you can just keep going down and down and down. Which in some lore it could be like that, but if it's not like that, then like you could, even if all the Underdark was interconnected, the ocean would fill it all up, and it might lower a little bit, but it's the fucking ocean. Like,
yeah, you're right. Just the volume alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are like tunnels, and there's water already down there.
Is this a fantasy physics episode? Is this what we're doing?
Welcome to Fantasy Physics, everybody. I'm going to be digging through the ocean on this episode. Episode 2.5, maybe 3. I don't remember.
Episode 2.5.
But yeah, basically, it's been going on, and I didn't tell you about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're exploring what happens if we dig tunnels from the ocean into the Underdark, and not a lot. The answer is not a lot happens.
Yeah, there we go. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I haven't. We talked about the madness. There's a general like theme of enslavement with the Underdark. Everything down here either enslaves or devours or does both. Like the Illithids, they enthrall and they enslave. The Aboleths, they enthrall and enslave. The Drow have a mad amount of slaves. Slavery is like their trade. Duergar, same shit. Like,
well, I don't know. Deep gnomes don't devour or slave. They're kind of like...
Well, okay.
like
not everything. I'm just saying most things down here.
things.
Beholders, they usually just kill. But sometimes they do enthrall. Like, we've talked about that.
They're just paranoid as fuck.
Yeah, they're super hyper paranoid.
Do dragons go into the Underdark?
Sometimes, yes.
For why?
Okay, so the most common... There's two... The two most common dragons you'll find down here, number one would be shadow dragons from the Shadowfell.
Oh, that's right.
Can cross back and forth.
Every kind of dragon. There is every kind of dragon.
Yeah. And then there are purple dragons, which we haven't talked about because they're not in the monster manual.
Oh.
But they are the Underdark dragon.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And I would like to do an episode on like secondary chromatic dragons. So we'll talk about browns, yellows, purples. We might talk about like, what's the word? Bichromatic, polychromatic.
That's right.
We'll do an entire.
Yeah.
We'll do chromatic dragons part 2.
Part 2. And then metallic dragons is another part.
Yeah, we're gonna do metallic dragons. I can't wait for that. And then metallic dragons will have a second part too because we're only gonna talk about.
Part 2.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about silver, gold, bronze, brass, and copper in the first episode. But there's also iron, adamantium, mithril, like. It gets crazy.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. This is a show about Dungeons and dragons are a thing.
Yes, we will eventually talk more about them.
There's such long stretches where you don't talk about dungeons or dragons.
Yeah. Well, the Underdark could be considered one gigantic dungeon.
It could.
Yeah, so there that is. Let's talk a little bit about the not so intelligent things in the Underdark. I'm sure you've looked through the monster manual and seen things like hook horrors or ropers or dark mantles.
Yes.
These things are all like the basic fauna of the Underdark. That's where they live.
Yeah,
like
they're
I said,
all very sneaky.
If it's gross and horrible and monstrous, like, and it doesn't have a very obvious plane of existence, they throw in the Underdark. That's just the way it is.
For sure. Yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge mishmash.
Yeah. And in the Underdark is just like this, it's just horrific. That's just the thing about it. It's just horrific.
It's just a nasty time.
It's a nasty, horrible place. Well, if you don't got any questions, I think I'm done talking about this horrible, horrible place.
Yeah, no, that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you later.
Bye.
Have a good one.
The Dungeoncast.